Hello and welcome to the first edition of Roadmap 2023, where we'll be talking about the trends, issues and developments as we race towards the 2023 polls. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which is the referee for the coming contest, says it's worried about the violence that has attended some of the campaigns, as well as the numerous court cases involving pre-election matters. My guest says, however, its resolve to conduct a free and fair exercise remains unshaken. Roadmap 2023 talks to INEC National Commissioner and Chairman of its Committee on Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Festus Okoye. Mr. Festus Okoye, thank you for your time. Welcome to Roadmap 2023.
Thank you so much.
Let me begin with some of the more contemporary issues that are in our electoral process at the moment. Let's kick off from INEC's involvement in court cases. Even as you and I are speaking today, candidates are being changed by the courts. They are declaring some people as authentic, some people are not being authentic, and so on. How much impact does this have on INEC's preparations, particularly in terms of logistics and other preparations?
With the alteration to the electoral legal framework, we thought we had gotten it right. But apparently, we now have almost over 700 cases bordering on pre-election matters, bordering on the nomination of candidates by the political parties, and bordering on the conduct of party primaries in court. And so we are really, really worried in relation to some of these cases. But I think that the good news is that the President of the Court of Appeal and the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court have set up special panels and given some of these special panels the mandate to conclude some of these pre-election matters speedily and expeditiously. So that is the good news. The flip side of it is that it is important for the Commission to have a resolution and a closure to some of these pre-election matters to enable us print our ballot papers in terms of the number of candidates that are supposed to be on the ballot, and also in terms of the political parties that are supposed to be on the ballot. We don't want to go and print ballot papers and then at the end of the day, the courts will make a declaration that a particular political party is not supposed to be on the ballot. And that will mean our going back to go and print new ballots in relation to that particular election. This deluge of pre-election matters is worrying to the Commission, but hopefully there may be a closure on some of them very, very soon.
How difficult has it been for the Commission to keep track? Because a lot of all these cases have emanated from party primaries, which INEC was supposed to monitor, supervise, and observe, and ensure that the rules were being followed. But as you said, the amendments to the framework, one would have thought would have, taken this into consideration and ensured that we didn't have this. We've had this in the previous election cycles, but one was hoping that it would be different this time around. So in that kind of scenario, how difficult has it been for INEC to ensure that the parties are observing internal party democracy?
Well, it's slightly difficult for the Commission. Now, in all the primaries that were conducted, where the Commission was given the requisite 21 days notice in accordance with Section 82 of the Electoral Act, we monitored the conduct of those primaries and we wrote our own reports relating to the conduct of those primaries. But, however, under Section 29, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, it is the responsibility and the mandate of the political parties to submit the list and personal particulars of the candidates they intend to sponsor in the election. But the candidates must have emerged from validly conducted party primaries. So when, if we have a situation where a particular political party submitted the name of somebody who was not part of the conduct of primaries, we didn't publish the names and particulars of some of those those candidates. So it becomes difficult when political parties go out of their way to do what is not right, to do the wrong thing in violation of both the Constitution and also in violation of the Electoral Act. Secondly, we have also had cases of conflicting court orders and conflicting court decisions from courts of coordinate jurisdiction. And we are also looking at them. And then we have had situations where judgment was given in relation to a particular matter today, and then within the next 2 weeks, we have another judgment, either from the Court of Appeal or from Court of Coordinate Jurisdiction. We are managing all these court cases. But in truth and in fact, the law is that under Section 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the fundamental law of the land, which is the ground norm, we as a public institution and as a public trust are obligated and constitutionally mandated to obey all court orders. Whether we agree with the court order or we don't agree with the court order, we are bound to obey the court order. But if there's another decision from a court of a superior jurisdiction, we also obey it. And so we are just following our rules and we are following our own mechanism. But hopefully, the various courts of law should pay particular attention to Section 285 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, especially in relation to the course of action, when the course of action has accrued and when a course of action has elapsed, and also in relation to the quantum of time the court of first instance has in determining the case that comes before it, and the quantum of time the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court have in determining these cases. But we are confident that with the measures that have been put in place by the various courts, especially by the President of the Court of Appeal and the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, that most of these cases will be determined soonest.
Let's stay with the preparations, shall we, and then come to what many are saying could be the straw breaking the camel's back, if you like, which is this continued attack or arson on INEC's offices and facilities in different parts of the country. And of course, each time this happens, INEC says, well, we'll work fast and see if we can get back on stream as quickly as possible in those areas. But how much coming back is possible as we get closer to the elections from these continued attacks? What is happening now in terms of possibly securing those facilities against further attack?
I just want to assure the nation, and the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has also assured the nation that our sensitive materials are not in any of these places where these attacks have occurred. We have secured the beavers and other sensitive materials that will be used in the conduct of this election. And so those materials are not in any of these facilities that are being attacked. Secondly, we are in close liaison, in close consultation and in close partnership with the various security agencies, and they have beefed up security in our 36 states, state offices throughout the Federation and our office in the Federal Capital Territory. They are also extending it to the various local governments. The chairman has made it clear that for the attacks that have taken place, we have the capacity to move on and replace some of those items quickly. But as we move towards closer to the election, if these attacks persist, it may be difficult for us to replace some of the materials that have been damaged. So that's why we want to move quickly, get these offices secured, and prevent further attacks. But this commission is resolved, and this commission is determined to proceed with electoral business, because that is what the Nigerian people want, and that is what the Nigerian people expect us to do. By Section 132, subsection 2 of the Constitution, our elections are circumscribed. There's a time limit and a window to which the Commission cannot move away from in terms of the conduct of election. And we don't want to fall off the constitutional radar. And so we are going to move on assiduously and make sure that we have a expeditious conclusion to the conduct of the election. And so we are moving on. Our spirit is not dampened. Those who are attacking our offices, if they think or believe that there's a possibility that their actions will prevent elections from holding in February and March. I think that that is a misplaced assumption because elections we hold and elections we hold on schedule.
The picture of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, the INEC chairman, as he watched beavers being loaded onto transport planes heading up for various locations, is in all media outlets and is also online. But then it brings to light, these are the machines that the whole country appears to be waiting for, because it's what has given the progressive result of more and more credible elections as time has gone on. But against the background of this attack and against the background of the controversy that happened earlier with reference to the CBN, which was normally the area, the facility where these things would have been previously secured, INEC had, of course, made it clear then that it no longer intended to use the CBN. Again, I must ask you about the safety of these beavers machines, because so much seems to be resting on these facilities.
We had a meeting, our quarterly consultative meeting with all the 18 registered political parties. We also had a meeting with civil society groups and organizations. We had a meeting with the leadership of the media and also the leadership of the various security agencies on the issue of logistics and storage of our materials. At the end of all these meetings, it was unanimously agreed that the Commission should adopt a hybrid approach. One, keep the beavers in our custody and get all the security agencies, the DSS, the police, the army, the fire service, and all the other security agencies secure these materials. However, it was also agreed that we should continue to keep ballot papers and result sheets with the central bank, since we have never had any issue whatsoever with the central bank. So we have agreed on a hybrid approach to the securing of our sensitive materials. I want to assure you and also assure the nation that our beavers will be safe. As you can see, when the chairman was inspecting the loading of some of these beavers, you can see that these beavers are being transported and being moved by the Nigerian Air Force under very heavy security. So we have no doubt whatsoever that our beavers will be secured and our ballot papers and result sheets will also be secured. So some of these issues have already been resolved, and we are moving ahead with our preparations.
Now, as you prepare and as you continue with those preparations, there seem to be continuous, if you like, spokes in the wheel of this continuous preparation. Only recently, a court ordered INEC to continue with voters' registration, even after the commission had extended the voting exercise, had concluded it, and was going ahead with display of the register for people to make corrections. How is this, how are you balancing this with obeying the court orders, which you said is part of the commission's objectives, obeying court orders on one hand, and at the same time ensuring that implementing those court orders do not derail the timetable that has already been put in place?
Well, I have read the order by the court in question. That particular court never made any order to the effect that the commission should resume the continuous voters registration exercise. In fact, the court went ahead to say that it is too late in the day to order the commission to reopen or recommence the voters registration exercise. So that particular court never made that order. The news medium that initially put up that particular news item later pulled it down and gave the correct information. The only thing the court said was that in terms of the usage of the word "not later than," in section 19, in section 9 of the Electoral Act, that the commission was supposed to continue with that particular exercise up to a certain period of time. But there was also a judgment of a court of coordinate jurisdiction, a federal high court, earlier on, saying that the court was right. I mean, the commission was right in stopping the CVR as at the time we stopped it. So in relation to the interpretation of the law, we have judgments from two courts of coordinate jurisdiction, and the commission will definitely test that aspect of the judgment in the Court of Appeal. But no court of law ordered us to resume the CVR. It was not the correct information that was given.
Now, in terms of the voters register itself, I had alluded to the fact that INEC has now put it up for display for corrections, adjustments, and all of that. And I guess the next point is this is part of a cleanup exercise in order to make it even more credible as more names are added onto it. What exactly, one, is it that the commission wants the citizens to do as this register is displayed? And then at the end, what is it that the commission itself is going to do with the list post the display?
There are three issues involved here. The first is that this particular commission went out of its way and established what we call the online portal for pre-registration. This enables young Nigerians to go online, do their pre-registration before going to our local government offices to go and capture their biometrics. Secondly, at the end of the entire CVR, which started on the 28th day of June 2021 and ended on the 31st day of July 2022, a total of 12,298,944 registrations were carried out. Out of this particular number, the commission made a determination that the total valid registrations stood at 9,518,188. And we also made a determination that out of the total 12 million that I alluded to, 2,780,554 were either double or multiple registrants, or were registrations that we considered as malicious. So we used our automated biometric identification system to clean this particular register. And we also carried out what we call manual adjudication to remove visibly underage registrants. And then at the end of the day, we integrated the 9,518,188 registrants that we harvested from the CVR with the existing voters register that stood at 84 million. So we now we displayed a total of 93,522,272 in our local government offices and in our registration areas or wards. We also uploaded it on our website for people to go and make claims and objections. Under Section 19 of the Electoral Act, the Commission is under a legal obligation to display the register in all these places I have alluded to for what the law calls for claims, for objections, and complaints. And the law says that when we finish what we are doing internally, we should also subject the register to Nigerians. Let Nigerians go and look at this register in all these places to see, one, whether their names and personal particulars have been properly captured. Two, whether there are still names of persons who are deceased that are still on the register. Three, whether foreigners have been captured on the register that the Commission could not detect. Four, whether there are visibly underage registrants that have been captured. And five, whether there are some other malicious registrations that have occurred. So that is what the law expects us to do. And the law expects us to also appoint revision officers and assistant revision officers to look at these complaints, harvest these complaints, adjudicate on these complaints, and then at the end of the day, the Commission will correct the register and get a clean voters register that will be given to political parties. That's exactly what has happened. But the issue of a clean voters register is a continuous exercise. We are going to we have harvested and will continue to harvest all the claims, all the objections and the complaints, and we are going to attend to them. But we keep on trying to clean up and improve the voters register. So what we have done is what the law expects us to do, what the law mandates us to do, because we want Nigerians to also assist the Commission have a very robust, clean register that is not opaque in any way.
If that is the situation, then of course, I'm following the logic. It would appear as if that may have some impact on the issue of PVC production and collection. Because, I mean, if the Commission was already in the process of producing, say, a PVC for Citizen A, and then there is an objection to Citizen A in terms of whether Citizen A is underage or has maliciously registered, as you indicated, of course, that person is therefore not entitled to a PVC, right? And therefore, on the whole, if there are several of those in different parts of the country for different reasons, that may affect the issue of PVCs. I want you to confirm that.
I completely agree with you that some of the malicious registrations that have been carried out and some of the ones that were not earlier detected, that those PVCs will be withheld. And so we are compiling the list of all the persons who engage in malicious registration, and then we are going to remove their PVCs from the bulk that has already gone to the states. But if for one reason or the other, any underage person slips out of our radar, and then the person appears in any of the polling units on election day, that individual will get arrested. And the parents of some of these individuals must know that when their wards commit any offense and they are underage, that we may likely proceed against the parents or proceed against their guardians. So they are not completely immune from being proceeded against in terms of the electoral process. So it is in their interest to make sure that their kids or their wards who are underage do not approach any of our polling units on election day, because they will be arrested, and when we arrest them, we will also go after their parents.
All of this, Mr. Okoye, must cost sums of money that are probably mind-boggling, because when the commission has to adjust its plans to suit new circumstances, when you have to adjust ballot papers on the basis of court orders of new candidates and removal of all of that, it costs money. And quite a lot of people say that, you know, the elections in Nigeria are very expensive. Do you agree with them that the elections are very expensive? And how prepared is INEC, budgetary-wise, in terms of funding, to be able to prosecute this election without running into any snags?
The funds the Commission requires for the conduct of the 2023 election has been appropriated, but they are being released in tranches. As you know, this is the first time in the history of this country that the law made a provision that funds, election funds due to the Commission, should be released to the Commission at least a year before the election. There are some funds that we don't need as at present. Funds for the payment of ad hoc staff, we don't need them at this point in time. But the Commission is slightly comfortable with the quantum of funds it has in relation to where we are in prosecuting the election. But I agree with you that some of these things may lead to slight adjustment in our funding needs. But I believe that elections cost much, and for our own circumstances, if you look at Section 134 of the Constitution, it obligates us to also prepare and make contingency plans in case there's a runoff election. And you don't begin to prepare a runoff when the election has started. So we prepare for the main election and also prepare for possible runoff when we are preparing for the main election. So it's a very costly venture. But I believe that this commission is very, very prudent, and we are managing the resources available to us to the best of our ability, taking into consideration the economic circumstances of the country and also the general economic indices in the world.
There is the issue of election finance. And now I'm not talking about financing in terms of the costs of conducting. I'm talking about the expenditure by the political parties or the politicians, the contestants. INEC has been hobbled in the past from being able to monitor effectively how these parties are generating the funds and how they are spending them and from whom they are generating this funds. But this time around, it does look as if INEC, at least going by the statements that have been made, INEC is looking forward this time to a more robust accounting by the political parties. How do you intend to ensure that they comply with the provisions of the law in this regard? The campaigns have started.
Well, we have a whole department that's charged with this particular responsibility, and they have a template for monitoring political party finances and expenditure. We are also collaborating with the various security agencies. In fact, just last week, the chairman had a high-level meeting with the EFCC, with the ICPC, and with the other regulatory agencies, and also with those in charge of advertisements and so on. In the next few weeks, again, there will be another high-profile conference where all the political parties and their candidates will be invited, and where the laws as it relates to campaign financing will be rolled out, and then the procedure for enforcement will also be rolled out.
Have you reached any conclusions as to how polling booths are now to be organized, against the background of the newer phenomenon that has now come up, because before now, rigging was the key thing. People come in, they snatch ballot boxes, and they go and stuff them with ballots and all of that. That has proved increasingly more difficult with the introduction of technology and other innovations by INEC. But now they've resorted to vote buying. People are now buying votes, people are able to show those who are paying for their votes the way they voted because of the alignment of the polling booths. This was highlighted in Ekiti, in particular in the Ekiti governorship elections. Has the commission, reached an agreement or some kind of template as to how to address this challenge coming up with the general elections?
Well, it's a continuous dialogue and a continuing dialogue. We are also dialoguing with the EFCC, the ICPC, and other security agencies. But in terms of our own processes and procedures, and you know that prior to this time, we had a total of 119,974 polling units. And then the commission converted a total of 56,872 voting points and voting point settlements into full-fledged polling units, bringing the total number of polling units in Nigeria to 176,846. Now, we have also moved some of these polling units away from areas where they were, closer to the people and also closer to our various communities. And so we have more polling units now. What we are doing going forward is to give our presiding officers and other ad hoc staff a more robust training, a training that lasts longer, so that they will understand the configuration of the various polling units, know how to place the voting cubicles in such a way to guarantee the secrecy of the vote. Unfortunately, our election is in such a way that it's called the open secret ballot. You thumbprint in the secret and then cast your vote in the open, because that's what the law provides. But that secrecy is what we are trying to guarantee. So positioning of the polling units, the architecture of the polling units, and also making sure that the secrecy of the vote is guaranteed is key. We are also liaising with the security agencies, as I pointed out, to make sure that those who come near the principles of the polling units to come and do vote trading and vote buying are not allowed. And if anybody does that, the person will definitely be arrested. But more importantly and ultimately, all of us, all the critical stakeholders, civil society groups and organizations, the media, have a responsibility to name and shame those engaged in vote buying. And the security agencies also have a responsibility to arrest and investigate those engaged in vote buying, so that they will be prosecuted, and it will serve as a deterrent to those who want to corrupt the electoral process. But it's continuing dialogue, and we'll continue with all the measures we put in place to make sure that the sanctity of the electoral environment is protected.
Are you worried about the violence that has attended the campaigns? I mean, the campaigns haven't been on for long, but already we have had reports of attacks on political party campaign rallies, on convoys, attempted attacks, and all of that. Are you worried? And if so, is there anything that the Commission can do to rein these attacks in, possibly in terms of sanctioning responsible parties if and when they are identified?
Yes, we are worried. The Commission is worried because, as you know, we have different colors of insecurity in different parts of the country. So we cannot afford as a people and as a nation to add politically motivated insecurity into the existing security situation and security condition in various parts of the country. So definitely we are worried. And we have also reached out to the political parties and their candidates, urging them to play this game with some level of civility. The National Peace Committee, headed by our former head of state, has also waded in and got them to sign a peace accord in relation to their campaigns and in relation to their rallies and also in relation to their processions. We have also released our guidelines for the conduct of rallies, campaigns, and processions. And we've made it clear that any political party that wants to organize campaigns, rallies, or procession in any local government area must give the electoral officer of that particular local government 10 days notice of his intention to do so. And if the procession or campaign or rally is taking place in the state, the electoral officer must be given 10 days notice to organize for us to go and monitor those campaigns, rallies, and so on. This will enable the security agencies also to monitor what is going on and then prevent attacks by different political parties on another party's political campaign, and also prevent other things from other unwholesome things from being done. And so we are worried, and we are also liaising with the various security agencies to get the political parties to understand that there will be consequences for further infraction. And we hope and pray that as we move towards the election, that the political parties will realize that militarizing the political atmosphere and the electoral environment will not do anybody any good, and that it is in the interest of all Nigerians that we have free, fair, transparent, inclusive, and peaceful election.
Do you have concerns about the general security situation? I know we have talked about the one that relates to INEC facilities and so on, but even in terms of those who are supposed to do the voting here, the voters, you and I are familiar with the various challenges in different parts of the country. And INEC is going ahead with its arrangements and the plans and the logistics and everything. But do you perhaps fear, or are you concerned that maybe in spite of the quality of the preparations and the logistics, that come D-Day or D-Days, we might have a problem with people not being able to actually exercise their franchise in some parts of the country for no fault of the commission, but because of other challenges that have to do with other things that are going on?
Nigerians are ready for this election. Nigerians are ready to continue with this particular democratic path. Before we conducted the Anambra governorship election, there were all sorts of security scares, all sorts of security concerns, all sorts of security challenges. But we assured the nation that the election will go on, and the election did go on, and Nigerians adjudged that election as free, fair, and transparent. This election that we have fixed for the 25th of February and the 11th day of March 2023, we go on as planned. And we are confident that the election will take place in all parts of Nigeria. We have been in close contact with all the security agencies, and we have received assurances from them that they have the capacity to degrade some of these security challenges we have, and also neutralize anything that will prevent us from conducting the 2023 general election. And we are confident that the elections will take place, because the alternative to the election not taking place cannot be imagined.
There is the issue of the inclusion of disadvantaged or vulnerable groups, and here let me start from the ones that are related to security. That's IDPs, internally displaced persons who are in camps because where they would traditionally be living, and probably where their polling units are not safe to be able to conduct the exercise. What are INEC's plans for those kinds of people? I mean, let's start off with the IDPs before we come to other vulnerable groups.
Well, we have a validated framework on IDP voting, and the law gives us that particular mandate to make provision for those who have been displaced as a result of one emergency or the other, to make sure that they vote and vote during the election. So for the IDPs that are in their various states, we are going to recreate their polling units and also recreate their registration areas to make sure that they vote during the election. So we are going to establish polling units in the IDP camps that are configured according to their registration areas or their wards. For those who lost their PVCs as a result of their movement, we have reprinted their PVCs. They will be in a position to vote. But however, those who are not staying in IDP camps, those who are staying in the houses of relations, and those who are staying in other places, it's unfortunate that they may not be in a position to vote, because we cannot recreate their registration areas where they are staying in the houses of relatives and so on. But for those who are in IDP camps, we have updated our framework for IDP voting, and we are going to get them to vote during the election.
How about the physically challenged? I know that INEC has had a continuing engagement with those groups of people. I mean, those who are physically challenged, because they have continually made cases over the idea of inclusion in the process and making their participation easy. What's the status on that?
We don't have challenges with persons with disability. This is because for over a period of time, we have involved them in the planning processes for the election. And if you look at the Electoral Act 2022, you can see that more robust provisions have been made, capturing them within the electoral legal framework. We are providing braille ballot guides for those of them that need braille ballot guide. For those of them who belong to the Albino Foundation, for instance, we are providing magnifying glasses, we are providing posters and other assistive materials to assist persons with disability to vote in the election. We have also been harvesting the data of persons the data of persons with disability in the various polling units, in the various local governments, and also in the various states. During the voters registration process, during the CVR, the law also obligates us to segregate the data so that we can capture even the various types of disability that are prevalent in particular polling units and in particular registration areas. And we have been doing that. So we believe that as we move on with the election, we'll be in a position to key them in more fundamentally into the electoral process. And the persons living with disability are happy with the progress that the Commission has made. But we implore the various state governments to also improve the facilities that we use as polling units, so that persons with disability can access some of these polling units without much problem.
There is, of course, a provision in the law that determines the kind of facility that can be used as a polling unit and what it must contain and what it cannot be. And I'm wondering if that doesn't present some kind of challenge to the Commission, especially because at the level of the states, it is what is available or what they are willing to give that the Commission will be taking. How much of an engagement do you have at the level of the states or even the local governments on the issue of facilities, the kind of facilities that can be used, the safety of such facilities, both in terms of security and in terms of the comfort, both for officials and for voters?
There are basically three levels of facilities in question. The first is the facilities that we use as polling units on election day. The second are the facilities that we use as registration area centers and super registration area centers. And then the third are the facilities we use for purposes of collation of results. In terms of the polling units, we normally use secondary schools, we normally use primary schools. In places where we don't have secondary schools and primary schools, we use community centers, health centers, and in some places we even use open spaces where we provide canopies. So it depends on the dynamics and configuration of a particular place and the type of terrain that particular place has. So in terms of the primary schools and secondary schools that we use, we want the state governments to also make make facilities available so that persons with disability can easily access some of these facilities. Then in our registration area centers, this is where we keep the ad hoc staff overnight before we deploy them at the first light to the various polling units. Some of these places do not have light, they don't have water. So the Commission has to provide generating sets and provide GP tanks and buckets for the various ad hoc staff. And it is, it takes the Commission away from our core mandate when we have to be generating electricity and providing water and so on and so forth. So the state government should do well to provide facilities in some of these places. We have compiled the list of all these places and given to the various local governments and the various state governments. And the last are the facilities we use as collation centers, and we mostly use our facilities as an electoral management body as collation centers. In all these places, it is important that access should be granted and access should be made available to persons with disabilities so that we can integrate them more concretely into the electoral process so that no one will be left behind as we move towards 2023.
We have seen in previous election cycles that INEC as a body has not had too much control over the quality of the ad hoc staff that it eventually uses for the elections. At the very top, of course, the idea is that now you use top academics, vice chancellors as chief returning officers in particular. But lower down the ladder, when you get to the polling unit and so on, some of the ad hoc staff, having gone through, a couple of days of training and so on, sometimes are not quite into the process themselves, how much more be able to explain it to the voter. Is there anything that the commission is doing differently now to ensure that the quality of the ad hoc staff it eventually engages for the elections themselves are a notch higher this time?
The commission has realized the fact that when they have better training, when they have quality training, and when they have longer training, they tend to perform better. We learned that lesson in Ekiti. We also learned that lesson in Osun. And we have taken that particular lesson on board as we prepare to harvest the ad hoc staff that will be engaged in the conduct of the 2023 general election. And so the trainings will be more intense, the trainings will be longer, and the trainings will be robust. And we are going to also use both online and offline materials for the purposes of their training. So we are confident that this ad hoc staff that will be used for this particular election will be trained and they will be trained well. And so we don't have issues in relation to that. Presently, we are already training our, we are doing training the trainers on those who are going to train those that will handle the beavers. And we are going to also have registration area technical support staff in the 8,809 registration areas. And these registration RATEX will also, in turn, train all the 176,846 presiding officers and assistant presiding officers that will be charged with the responsibility of handling the beavers and the IREV on election day. And so we have taken that on board, and we are going to increase the quality and intensity of the training because training is key to the success of the election and the success of accreditation process.
We have spoken about a lot, Mr. Okoye, and I'm just wondering, you alluded to this at the beginning, that when the framework was adjusted, the 2022 Electoral Amendment Act was put in place, there were quite a number of people that, felt that, okay, now, again, another improvement has been brought into the process. But the conversation between you and I within the last 40 minutes or thereabouts has shown that we are dealing with more or less essentially the same issues that we have come to recognize as part of the elections process. So again, I'm now asking you, both as an INEC official and as in your previous designation as a civil rights activist, was the 2022 Electoral Amendment Act an improvement? Has it made INEC's work any easier?
The Electoral Act 2022 is a progressive piece of legislation. It is a huge improvement in previous legislation that we have had relating to the electoral process. One, it has changed the dynamics of funding for the commission. Two, it has also changed the dynamics in terms of the conduct of party primaries. Three, it has imputed technology more concretely and more fundamentally into the electoral process. Four, it has also given the Federal High Court the exclusive jurisdiction to hear and determine pre-election matters. And so I believe that, and I know that it is a huge improvement on previous efforts, and it has domiciled the use of technology more concretely in the electoral process. And so what the law has done is to give the commission better pathways to improve the integrity of the electoral process because, one, under Section 47, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act, it is mandatory for a presiding officer to use the beavers for voter accreditation and authentication. Secondly, it is also mandatory to transmit polling unit level results electronically into our INEC Result View portal in real time. There is no alternative to this. It's a mandatory provision of the law. Not only that, if you also look at Section 65 of the Electoral Act, it has also given the Commission the power within a period of 7 days to review declarations and returns that have been made not in consonance with the law and made under duress. So I think that there has been a marked improvement in our electoral legal framework, and the Electoral Act 2022 has brought about that improvement and has also strengthened the hands of the Commission in terms of the conduct of elections. And so we are happy with the improvements that have been made.
As we wind down this interview, let me ask you this. There are many doubters, as there are, and there usually are during this time ahead of the election season itself. And I wonder if you would say something particularly striking to them to allay fears, suspicions about how credible this election will be going ahead. And I'm happy you mentioned that about some of the things that are mandatory now about the electoral process, because from time to time you hear or you read of in the media spaces about INEC's seeming reversals of these processes. What can you tell the voter who is listening to you now, the Nigerian voter who is listening to you now, about the 2023 election that will ensure that he or she sees it as his duty or her duty to participate in the process, knowing that the outcome will count?
The 2023 general election will be driven by technology, and the Commission will deploy all the technological devices that have been provided for in the law in the course of this particular election. Secondly, on the 26th day of February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of the 2023 general election. Out of the 14 critical items on that timetable and schedule of activities, we have already implemented 9, and we implemented 9 on schedule. And we are not going to back away from the trajectory and the path we are following. The chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has made it very clear that never again will elections in Nigeria be postponed on account of logistics or logistic challenges. So we are starting, we started very early, and we are proceeding with the conduct of this election. This particular commission has the courage. This particular commission is determined, and this particular commission is looking at history in the conduct of this election.
Indeed. One can only wish you the very best of luck, Mr. Okoye, and through you to INEC, the very best of luck in this coming 2023 election season. Thank you for your time, and thank you for speaking to us on Roadmap 2023.
I wish you well, and I commend the channels for the work he's doing for the people of this country in relation to the election.
Thank you very much. That's our program today. We would, of course, like to hear from you on the conversation. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast, to get started. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.